Today I'm going to tell you about the biological effects of mushroom extracts, especially as used in traditional Chinese medicine, and maybe as is going to be used in Western medicine. This particular slide shows you already the experiments which were done by Ito and Shimura in Japan, and they show very clearly what the effect is of treating with mushroom extract in mice that have been inoculated with a transplantable tumor. On the upper level, you see that mice have not been treated with any polysaccharides or any mushroom extract. On the lower level, you see mice that were treated with 150 micrograms per day for 35 consecutive days. And you see that mice on the upper level have a very large tumor, whereas the mice that receive the same tumor, but also the mushroom extract, have no tumor present. Some mushrooms do what we saw on the previous slide. Some mushrooms do other things. But they all have something in common. It is that they are very strongly medicinal. Most of them are Phloeus lenteus, also called Song Huang, the 1,000-year-old mushroom. Agaricus blazei muriel, very popular in Japan nowadays, but originally coming in from Brazil. And then we have Ganoderma lucidum, that, in traditional Chinese medicine, has been used just as Phloeus lenteus for a number of years. What are the different components that have a medicinal effect? In the first place, there are the cell wall components of the different mushrooms. After this are polysaccharides. Then there are triterpenoids, as you can see are completely different organic compounds that have a strong medicinal effect. And there are small proteins used as lectins and peptides. And you know quite well from human physiology that peptides have a very strong biological effect depending on their nature. Now, how could we use those mushroom extracts? Could we use them, for example, to activate the immune system? Let's first have a look at the immune system. We have several defense mechanisms in our body. In the first place, there is the barrier, which prevents bacteria and viruses from coming in. The barrier consists of our skin, of our mucous membranes, of the peristaltic movements inside our intestinal system, our small hairs that play a role in the mucociliary escalator effect. Also, we can be pressed to vomit, or you can cry to remove bacteria, or you can throw them out with your urine, or you can cough them out. Next, we have innate immunity, something which is inborn, which we get from our mothers actually, and consists of several components, of course, like the acid in our stomachs, the microorganisms that are lining our intestinal system, and prevent other microorganisms from coming in. But there is also the complement system in our blood. There are the phagocytizing cells that pick up the infecting agents and eat them and kill them. There are the natural killer cells that get instructed, for example, by interferons, pseudophagocytes. And then there are the reactive oxygen species that literally oxidize incoming microorganisms and kill them. And then in a later stage, we are going to make our own immunity, which we call adaptive immunity. That consists of two components. The cellular component are cytotoxic cells that are instructed to kill any other affected abnormal cell. And there are humoral components. Humoral components, as there are available in our blood, our serum, and our lymph fluids. And mostly this has to do with antibodies. That's the systems that we can use. Now, the systems communicate and the cells communicate. And what happens first? When a bacterium comes into our system, the phagocytes, these big cells eat up the bacteria. Once they have done that, they break them down into pieces and expose them to the outside to show the others what they should do. And they send out small messages. And such a small message we call cytokines. So the phagocytes send out cytokines, and there are also chemokines, which are proportionately the same but have a slightly different function. They tell to the other parts of the system to kill cells or to remove the killed cells. And the removal of killed cells is called inflammation. Inflammation, that is, as we can see on this slide, is among other things, the accumulation of fluid. It swells, turns red, it hurts. That's inflammation. And once the situation is over, once the infecting agents or dead cells are removed, inflammation usually stops. Unless there is something wrong with the body, and that does occur. That does occur in rheumatoid arthritis, but we'll come back to that later. So that is the whole range of things that could happen. But there's some more to it. There should be a balance in the system, and the balance should be especially present in the type of immunity that we make ourselves. There should be a balance between what happens through cytotoxic cells and what happens through antibodies. If that balance is good, then the immune system functions well. If the balance is wrong, then it hurts, either at one part or another. The Th1-Th2 paradigm, which is representative of the effects of cytotoxic cells versus the effects of antibodies, says that there should be a balance. This balance should be in the body or else something goes wrong. Now, we know already that the first response to an antigen comes from the innate immunity, which comes from your mother. Second place, the adaptive immunity is switched on. You do that yourself, but only if the innate immunity is working well. So then again, the whole system should be working nicely, and then it all works. If parts of the system do not work, then you get sick. Now where there's this Th1, the cytotoxicity and the inflammation play a positive role in infectious diseases that's caused by bacteria and that's caused by viruses. But also in the case of cancer cells. There, the cytotoxicity is important because the cells that are infected by a virus or bacterium need to be killed and removed. The same holds true for cancer cells. When there are malignant cells available, they should be killed, and that is done by what is called bulb inflammatory effects. But the second part of the adaptive immune system also plays a role. Antibodies play a role. Antibodies are made up a bit later than the cytotoxic effects, and they are also used as cytotoxic cells, or the cytotoxic part of the immune system that have memory. And that is very important because later in life we can recognize what happens and give an immediate reaction. Now what do antibodies do? They kill infectious diseases which are caused by extracellular pathogens. That is to say, pathogens that do harm from the outside. Some viruses, some bacteria, and some parasites. Or antibodies are directed towards the external parts that grow outside the cancer cells, and that get loose and play a role in the body's circulation. Antibodies are able to help the body remove all those changed cells and pathogens. But, on the other hand, there are a number of diseases in which cytotoxicity plays a harmful role. On the one hand, it can be good, and on the other hand, when things go wrong, they definitely go wrong, and we end up with an autoimmune disease. Autoimmune diseases start by making antibodies against our own cells. But then cytotoxic cells come into play and they start doing a lot of work. And they cause swelling, and they cause pain and destruction. And where does this show up? It shows up in rheumatoid arthritis, where you see destruction of joints and swelling of joints. It plays a role in Alzheimer's disease, where parts of the neural tissue are destroyed. It plays a role in diabetes type 1, which is genetically programmed and where parts of the pancreas are changed. It plays a role in diabetes type 2. It plays a role in multiple sclerosis, where important parts of the neural tissue are destroyed. And so, there are many more diseases, a whole group called autoimmune diseases, approximately 70 to 80, that all play a role in the people's lives that have these diseases. And again, antibodies also play a negative role in autoimmune disease, because that is where it starts. And, as you may be well aware of, in allergies. Everybody knows the pollen allergy that occurs in spring. You're sensitized against the pollen and you sneeze and you cough, and you sneeze and you cough, and you get swollen eyes and you start to produce tears, etc., etc. Or allergies against food components. which make you vomit or which cause intestinal problems. It's not very nice when you have it. Or, for example, Alzheimer's disease. Antibodies also play important roles, which again are followed by cytotoxic problems. And again, an enormous problem. So, not only for the immune system, but for health in general, that balance of the system, that equilibrated effects works nicely. But if something is off balance, then there is quite a problem in the body of the person. Th1 and Th2 processes should be balanced. There should be an equilibrium in the two parts of the immune system. They should work together, not against each other. Now again, as I said before, there are several of those hormonal-like cytokines that play a leading role in spreading information in the body. Interferon tells the body to make inflammatory-like processes. However, the cytokine which we call IL-10 is the equilibration cytokine. It tells the body to equilibrate Th1 and Th2. Keep that in mind. Now, it is a good thing we are able to measure the effects of mushroom extracts in terms of cytokines that are produced to manage Th1, Th2, and Th3. Th3 means balance. Here, we have measured the effects of mushroom extracts. What we have done here is taken human blood cells and brought them into culture into the laboratory. We do that in a cultivation fluid. The cell starts to grow and they make their own small hormones, like cytokines. If we now add extracts from different mushrooms, then we see different amounts of cytokines being produced. And here, in this particular slide, you can see Ganoderma lucidum produces a lot of interferon gamma compared to the control, which you see in the lower row. Lintinus edode shiitake also produces a lot of interferon gamma. Flanaeus lintaeus song huang produces less than the control. But now, if you look under IL-10, which is the equilibration cytokine, you see that Ganoderma lucidum and Lintaeus edodes are very low, but Flanaeus lintaeus is very high. So what does this indicate? This indicates Flanaeus lintaeus is able to influence inflammatory processes in such a way that they become less severe, less serious. And that is what we could use. That is immunomodulation, and we can use mushrooms for immunomodulatory effects. Here, tested again at the left side, you see Flanaeus lintaeus in the same system is additive, 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 increased, 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 and that the concentrations of interferon gamma that are produced are going lower and lower and lower, as well as the TNF factor, which is also a parameter of inflammation. This indicates that Flanaeus lintaeus has the effect of balancing Th1. And that is not simple and result from cytotoxicity, because here more and more and more Flanaeus lintaeus extract was added to the system. And you see that the number of cells, that is the head of the blue bars, did not go down. It remained stable, indicating that Flanaeus lintaeus extract is not toxic. So what do we see? We see that we can use some of the glucans, some of the mushroom extracts, to modulate the immune system, to stimulate Th1 response or Th2 response, to balance the whole system. And how should we continue? We should test not only in the laboratory, but we should test for therapeutic effects in animal models before we ever consider going to human autoimmune disease or human cancer. We should study the effects of transplantable tumors in animals before we go to study the effects of human tumor patients. We should study the effects of allergies in animals before going to humans. Now, what have we done so far? We have found out that Flanaeus lintaeus polysaccharide is a balancer of the immune system. It may work against autoimmune disease and allergy, which makes it important. It may work against multiple sclerosis. It may work against rheumatoid arthritis. It may work against lupus. It generally speaking, activates the immune system and can be helpful in repair. So there it activates the immune system and increases the number of cells. When, if someone gets chemotherapy, 99% of the cells of the immune system are killed. But the 1% that remains after treatment with Linnaeus lentius is higher than it is without treatment, and repair is quicker. And then, something which I have not mentioned so far, another part of the mushroom extract, that is the tryptopanoids material, has its own effects. And there we could expect help against glycemia and glycemia.